Hello guys, welcome back. It's been quite a while since my last video, but today we are doing Block Wars episode 15. This is a big episode because it's the 15th episode. And so let's get started. Recently, the Redstone Empire has done some controversial things like invading the moss, and that was the biggest most controversial thing they've done so far, or recently. But right now, the Redstone Empire is kind of going through a period of civil unrest, and they are currently fighting a rebellion that's being supported by the Bedrock. And Lapis are trying to recover. The Obsidian are trying to recover from their war. And we are going to start this episode with the Obsidian building some more houses, especially after that massive war against the Moss. The war against the Moss had taken some time and inflicted heavy losses for the Obsidian, but it's not like that can't be repaired. The Obsidian clearly can repair losses quite easily. And so they're going to start doing that. They're also going to increase the military power in this region. And also increasing their borders slightly. And increase their military power. That's the main thing the Obsidian are trying to grow, is their military power, because they had fought a war against the Moss and they want to continue growing after that war. And the fight against the Moss kind of continues, but at the same time it doesn't. The Moss are really weakened now, and so they are trying to get a military force together. And what they mostly want to do is fight against the Redstone. So you kind of have this coalition being built against the Redstone. Of course, the bedrock, the soil, and now the moss. It's a very weak coalition. Like, these nations aren't big, they don't have big armies, they have very small armies, they have very little territory, but it is getting to be quite large in terms of numbers of members of the coalition. And the Obsidian are starting to increase their territory once again and build up more walls to defend their territory. And they increase their military size yet again, adding more troops to the table, and they throw more troops in to try and defend the territory they've occupied, which is very aggressive of them. And they're also trying to help the soil who are also going to slightly increase their military proportions. And the Redstone decide they are going to launch an offensive in the area where the Obsidian had struck them first. So they decide to pull soldiers forward and to fight against the bedrock. And so, of course, at this time, it's basically only about who can send in the greater army to fight the other side. And of course, the Redstone can obviously do that. And so the Redstone do a push into the occupied territory, quickly claiming some small gains for their forces. And the Bedrock decide to retreat from the positions which they had taken, or some of the positions they had taken, and the Redstone are going to try and push even more. from the right and take more territory. And the fight's becoming larger and larger. And more dense as the Redstone soldiers continue to push through. And you may think, oh, well, it's not really going to be much of a fight since the Redstone soldiers obviously have the numerical advantage. They have a larger army, but it is a lot larger of a fight and lots more intensive a fight than you would think, because, of course, the Bedrock are extremely good at fighting. And the Bedrock decide to retreat their forces back, but not to their home, instead to the soul sand area, or soil area. And the Redstone are furious because of this. And their forces encircled the Bedrock soldiers, but they continue to lose some more soldiers fighting them. And they continue to mount soldiers upon this area, but they also prepare for an offensive across the region to try and make the Bedrock fall back and retreat. So they send their soldiers out to threaten the Bedrock. And they get 4 more soldiers newly drafted into their military, which all also go to threaten the Bedrock. And the fight starts. Quickly, the soil loses soldiers, and they are forced into a retreat. And quickly, the Redstone move in to try and take their enemy by surprise with this retreat. But the Redstone lose quite a few soldiers, pushing forward. And they're building this very tough line of soldiers to try and intimidate their foe. And the Bedrock quickly start losing soldiers, so they decide to retreat even more. Now losing most of the barracks, and the soul soil soldiers are quickly crushed. And meanwhile, the threat is taken personally, and the Bedrocks start unleashing havoc upon the Redstone soldiers. But the Redstone soldiers kill a couple Bedrock soldiers. And so the fight is taking place. And the Lapis, of course, decide that this will be their time to kind of take revenge upon the Redstone. So they gather more soldiers, a lot more soldiers, and decide to send out some of them to deal with the Redstone. Now, this army is super wide, and it has to cover a lot of ground, so they are going to have some trouble with managing their territorial effectiveness and ownership. Now, the Redstone decide to retreat from their positions because it's not really working how they were hoping it would. Their offensive isn't. And they hear that there's something going on back at their home area. And they find that the Lapis have thrown in a desperate attempt to take territory, their entire army at the Redstone. And so this is a shocking movement. And the Redstone suffer even more casualties against the Obsidian. But eventually, with 2 soldiers left, they managed to beat the Obsidian here. And finally re-secure this territory. Now the problem is that all of this territory is drained of its value. All of the houses have been completely destroyed. And they've lost a lot of soldiers. And now the Bedrock decide to launch an invasion of the Redstone, which is very, very dumb, but it somehow manages to work. And they don't hold the territory that they take. Instead, in an effort to try and kill as many redstone as possible, they head to the palace and kill everyone in the palace. Now there's only 1 soldier remaining. This was a complete shock, and these soldiers were elite soldiers. But everything around the palace is completely destroyed. The Bedrock soldier goes on to kill many other soldiers. And he himself is also killed, but then the Bedrock decide that this was a massive fail, and now the surrounding regions are decimated, and we've seen this happen before when other nations kind of went on a rampage through territory, but this is just horrible. And the Lapis end up killing off the Redstone soldiers as they have a complete numerical advantage. And the Lapis, surprisingly, don't even lose a single soldier. So this is what happened after some time had passed. The Obsidian had claimed part of the Redstone Empire's territory. The main military zone was completely destroyed. Well, mostly destroyed. There were a few remnants. And the Moss claimed some of that. And the Lapis, on the other hand, got a massive empire. Easily the world's largest, or the largest in this world. They had united more territory than they ever had, more territory up here than they ever had, more territory down here than they ever had. Like, I remember when the Moss had gotten their empire, but this empire, I'd say, would be even larger than the Moss Empire was. We do gotta give the Moss some credit for how big the empire was, but it wasn't as big as, anywhere near as big as this empire is. It is it doesn't have dense population. The most dense its population gets is like right over here, and then right over here, so very far north, and very far northeast, more like it, and very far south. And then in the center and in the northwest, it basically has no population in those areas. And of course, it still has its super military zone, so it gets a massive kind of military, only ruled by 2 generals right now because it is just so mixed up. The Bedrock, of course, got nothing out of this. They had just defeated their enemy, the Redstone. They didn't get any territory, which is super bad for the Bedrock, but they had kind of wasted their chance. And the Netherrack, the Holy Netherrack Empire has been formed. They have taken all of this and all of this. They are now much more powerful than they used to be. And yeah, so that's about it. So I hope you guys had a wonderful time watching this video. Please make sure to like the video and subscribe. and I'll see you guys next time for my next video. Bye!